You asked, what is slavery? I think that is a good question. Alright, before I move on, this is number 5, and basically this is a comment by YTSELTTV1056, and he have structured his comment where in the previous video we have covered the first paragraph 1 to 4, and then here he continues with number 5. So I split the video based on the comment, so this is direct continuation, although I think he separate the issues, right? So we have talked about morals in the previous video. Here we are talking about slavery, I assume. I haven't read this, so let's read it for the first time and react. You asked me about slavery. You asked about slavery, right? I think that is a good question. To me, slavery is the ownership of another human being as property. So this means this other human being can be bought and sold. Has slavery been different from throughout human history? Is slavery different from this in Islam? What would happen to captives of war in Islam? Civilians, women and children were considered captives of war, which is now a no-no based on our current morals. Did these women and children not end up on market being sold? Are you talking about now? Okay, I read the paragraph first. Or being divided among Muslims as property which they can sell, give away as gifts, and so on. Other nations at this time did this. At this time is back then, I think. Taking captives and selling them into slavery. People taken as captives of war, stolen from their homes or while traveling and kidnapped, it is all slavery. How someone ended up in chains and at the market being sold, that does not change what it is, slavery. Alright, so this is about what is slavery, and the big question is it different in Islam? Now, in context of how in Islam Allah gives the jurisprudence in handling this issue, there's two things. One is there are people that at that moment, at that time, back then, is already considered as slaves. So that's one thing. Meaning when Islam comes, there's already, not sure how they end up become slave, but they are already in that category in the society that exists. And moving on from there, how can someone that is not at that point a slave end up become a slave, right? So that's the second question. So there's two questions, right? How to deal with the slaves, already slaves at that moment. So when Islam comes, how to deal with this? And second, would anyone else suddenly become slave afterwards, right? So that's two questions basically. Okay, so and this, what about captives of war? So in Islam, from the verses from the Quran, right, and the practice, the how someone ended up basically become slaves, we will use that word, right, is if they are captives of war, meaning they are soldiers that clash in the battlefield and they become captives, right? So when you say civilian, women and children were considered captives of war, okay, so you cannot conflate between what is happening elsewhere and Islam. So when Islam says captives of war, it is defined what that means. You cannot say, oh, Islam says about captive of war, and then you conflate with what other people consider as captives of war. If you want to suggest that as if children can become captives of war, for example, right? So you have to bring forth what is the primary source in the Quran or Hadith that justify this idea, right? Now, women can actually become captives of war if they are, in that battle, soldiers or those who are directly, part of the army, right? If you imagine Islam come to a place, right, and conquer the place, for example, right, and whoever is in this place become captive of war, then you would find, if that is the case, right, you will find that all the region that Islam spread to become slaves, right? Because all of them are captives of war. But that is not what happened. So, and many well-known Muslims are from whatever tribe, whatever race, whatever ethnic group where Islam spread to. For example, Imam Bukhari, if you the Hadith Bukhari, etc., right? Those are from a region, Bukhara, etc., right? Those are outside of the how to say, the Peninsula Arabia, right? So that's actually, so is he a slave then? Because when Islam go into that region, it is being, from Islamic perspective, liberated. From other people's perspective, maybe I don't know, colonized or captured, or whatever you want to use it. But war happened with the Persian, with the Roman, etc., right? And spread. So if every time you want to say that when a war walk and then the Islamic army capture a place, everyone becomes, the civilians, etc., become captives of war, then if that is the case, then all except Arabs are slaves. But that is really not the case, right? Most of the scholars, etc., comes from this region. And so what exactly is captive of war then? Captive of war is mainly those who actively participate as the soldiers on the other side that is being captive, right? They're not killed, they are captured, they are captives of war. Can women become that? Yes, if she actually actively participate and become part of the soldier or the supports of the soldier, etc. Yeah, it's not, so you have to differentiate between when Islam conquer certain region, suddenly you, as if you want to have an idea that all the women in that region suddenly become something. No, it's only any of those who are active soldier or support of the soldier, right? The special case in this time of Prophet Muhammad SAW is when the small tribe and the whole of the tribe actually actively siding with the enemy, etc., right? So this happened with several tribes of the Jews, Bani Qurayza, the Khaybar, Bani Qaniqa, right? So those are not those are not similar to the case when Islam spread. Those are a pocket of society that collectively they side with the enemy, and then when they are dealt with, that's you have to differentiate. Because I think anyone, I'm not saying you, the person that commented, most of these are Christian that like to comment without any context, right? They normally cite what happened because the woman from this Jewish tribe that become slaves, right? That you have to go back. Why are they considered as part of the enemy's battle army? Because in that context, what happened is this, and then that's why they are considered as such. But if you say in general, you don't see that kind of things, because that kind of treason, collective treason, doesn't happen as what the Jewish tribe did, right? So this have to be corrected. So when we say civilian women and children captives of war from the perspective of different power, etc., back then, Islam do not apply the same principle. So I hope that answered that question. Did this woman and children not end up make sold? So I'm not sure you are talking, because this, is it about general history? I'm not sure. Maybe you're talking about the blacks back then end up in the market, etc. So I cannot comment on that. But if you want to talk about Islam, I hope I have clarified the position. Or being divided among Muslim as property, etc. This is only the soldiers, etc., right? So those are the one that only possibly become slaves. Other nation at this time did this, taking captive. Okay, so when other nation is doing this, So this is where it's hard to have a nuanced discussion to properly, because sometimes I have to draw on what to clarify points, right? Islam do not do it like any other nation. So to put it simply, I hope some of the things that I have mentioned clarify this, right? We have a very significantly different way of looking at it compared to what others did. So even if the way I said just now, it does imply that I accept the concept is in Islam, but it's severely different than what you might imagine if you look at human history, because Islam do not endorse many of those things, even though they are parallel in certain aspect. If you understand, people take as captive of war, stolen from their homes. Okay, so stolen from their homes while traveling, etc. This you cannot claim this is Islamic. Islam this cannot be done. Even in war, before we talk about captive, right? Even in war in Islam, you cannot do this. You cannot. You know, you cannot harm certain people, non-combatants. You cannot harm. Place of worship, you cannot do anything about that, etc. Right? So, what others have done throughout history, in Islam, that is not acceptable, right? Okay, now. Since the abolishment of slavery around the world, countless wars happened and slavery was never used in any of them. Well, except the ISIS war, where they took captives of war and created slave markets. Muslims around the world came out and said this is not part of our religion. So I do not understand this hypothetical war you are talking about, in which slavery would be a solution. As humans, we are moving away from this. There is no circumstances in which it should be applicable. This is why I said the concept of morals not changing is problematic. The only reason you are saying slavery is on snooze because you believe God said it is moral, so there should be a scenario in which it should be allowed to happen. Yeah, we are talking conceptually, right? Now, I cannot comment on ISIS because they are their own thing, right? One thing, in terms of Islamic principles, there are certain things that is not allowed until you establish certain things, and this is why ISIS is so adamant, or so, how to say, they want to establish themselves as quote unquote the Khalifa of the world, because certain things that they do from the principle is a big no-no. Okay, I'm not talking about the captive, etc. I'm talking about even declaring war, right? Declaring war on certain region, etc. That is not possible unless you have, meaning the Khalifa have been institutionalized. Now, that in itself is a big discussion on, okay, is there any manifestation of that and how it manifests in current nation state world that we know of? Because the operation back then is when the world is living based on empire, etc. Right? It's totally different structure. Now we have nation state. So even the concept of, okay, what is the equivalent of Khalifa now? Is it what is it? But my point is why ISIS want to declare that they are the Khalifa, etc. Because otherwise they cannot even try to justify whatever they do. But of course, what they did beyond, number one, what they did there to claim something, and number two, what they did afterwards. Of course, as you said, Muslims have come out and says, what is this? This has nothing to do with our religion, etc. Okay, that's number one. Number two, in terms of, would there any situation where that becomes a solution? Before we go yes or no or whatever, I hope the principles were slave in Islam, the concept itself, because we have to use that word. Some Muslims do not like to use that word to refer to the concept itself, because people, when they see you slave, they already imagine what happened in the world throughout history, where most of that is not in line with quote-unquote slave in Islam, the concept, the fundamentals, the operation, the principles, right? Because they have their rights, right? So if you go deep into this, what are the rights of slave? You know, you can discuss this. In Islam, there are certain rights of slave that have to be protected, etc., 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 right? So you would see that, oh, okay, on one hand, it is like property. On the other hand, it is more of a social construct rather than you have no dignity, you don't have no right, etc. If you understand, right? So if we want to discuss on this concept alone, it will be at length and we can spend hours on this. Why I do not speak that much on this, because as you said, in terms of it's on snooze and I'm not sure until when, right? What's the point of discussing something that is effectively not at play now, when there are more pressing issues where we should discuss that, right? So that's why there are certain topic, even though it is a valid discussion, it is not the issue now, it's not a concern now, hence we should discuss others. But with you, I think because we are talking about the principles, not the operation, right? So that's my point. When you say there's no circumstance in which this should be applicable, I'm saying something with the concept, for example, in slavery, of the rights of the slave, etc., etc., is part of what I am saying, if you understand. Meaning that when I say there might be a situation, I'm not sure how much in the future, World War, I'm not sure whatever I'm not sure what would trigger that. But with that concept, I still would say that that is one possible solution to what would happen, with the understanding that slave is fully in the concept, principle, etc., that is unlike any slavery that you see worldwide in history. So when I say this, and if you think and you map out the slave that happened, so then we are understanding different thing, or we imagine different thing, even though we use the same term slavery, right? So that's my concern when discuss about this. Yeah, I hope you get a bit of what I'm trying to say. I'm not sure how to verbalize it more, how to say, more clear, etc., right? Because this is not a topic that I normally discuss in this platform, or open platform like this, because it requires many nuance, fundamentals before. I even when I discuss with most of Muslim that throughout their life they never go in depth in this, there are a lot of caveat that I have to say, because otherwise they might think based on whatever they see. For example, they imagine the slave based on the movies, etc., right? Which is may be based on the slavery in human history. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something else. But because we use the same word to refer to two different things, it may create confusion. Anyway, but fundamentally, for anyone who believes in God, God knows everything, knows the past, present, and future. When God dictates something, if something can be seen to be valid in the past, but doesn't seem to be that valid now, only God knows if it would come to become something that seen very much valid in the future, that we might not even imagine what would happen, right? So from the perspective of that, for those who believe in God, we have that fundamentals. So that's why I'm saying, I understand you talking about, you're seeing from the lens of you imagine the trajectory, right? Trajectory of human history. So the past and now, you would imagine that the future would be only in that way, right? There's no possibility of suddenly, totally become a total chaos or whatever, right? So I'm not sure if that is one of the differences which we have between us. Anyway, You said our human practices like slavery might coincide with what God considered to be moral. Okay, I forgot what I exactly say. From my point of view, religion absorbed the belief and culture of people they developed in. This is why slavery is moral in all religion. They were developed when it was moral. If a new religion is to be made today, it would probably teach that slavery is wrong because that is what we believe. We can even see it in a religious book. When they tried to explain aspect of the natural world, they just absorbed the belief of people of the time, resulting in scientific blunders in religious books today. Okay, I understand what you are saying, because you are saying from the perspective of course, all religion is made up, hence it's a fruit of our thought process and brain, etc., right? So I can understand not fully, but I can understand where you come from with this statement. And if I imagine I am also from that perspective, this totally makes sense, because all religion is man-made from your perspective, right? And of course it is based on what ideas that they have to begin with that shaped whatever religion that they mold, right? That's why we can see that why the dynamic between male and female is in a certain way for most of the religion, because it is a result of human being at that time thinking about things, right? Of course, for those who actually believe in God, I see this differently, because when God says something, God knows past, present, future. And that's why in Islam there are many things that can be pinpointed where it totally go against the reality at the time. It totally go against the norm at the time. Of course, when you see that in this point about slavery, it seems that it matched that back then it is acceptable, hence that's why every religion produced by man, based on your perception, will have that component. But from those who believe in, of course, these have the foundation that have to be resolved first, right? How do you even say this is really from God, etc., right? So, but we skip that to have this discussion, right? So I will say that provided that God is true, that's true creator. The creator knows past, present, future, and whatever that creator dictates, it is already encompassing of that knowledge. So that's where we have different fundamentals here. But I understand what you are saying. You ask why the marriage to Aisha is wrong from my point of view. From what I said before, to me, this marriage is not problematic looking at it from the point of view of morals being relative. It only becomes a problem when you say this practice is from God. Like you said, God said same-sex marriage is wrong and immoral. So same-sex marriage will always be wrong and immoral. In this case, God says marrying children as soon as they start their monthly cycle is moral. Today, children are married off too young because of this. God says it's moral and okay. The reason why it is problematic now is in 2025 is brought up because child marriage is being practiced because of what happened in the past. We now know while children marriage is wrong, how harmful it is to children, but the morality of God doesn't change. I hope you understand the point after. Okay, I understand this, right? This one. Why? Okay, when you say why child marriage is wrong, because it is harmful to children, and this is what I want to understand. Are you saying this statement as valid? I'm not saying but right or wrong. Are you saying that the marriage of Aisha is harmful? That's number one, right? And why not? And this is the thing. When and I'm saying this not just to address non-Muslim. I'm saying this to address Muslim as well, because some Muslim is taking certain things very wrongly. They just say, oh, that age, so I want to do this age, right? They never understand context to match the context, right? Number one, the marriage with Aisha. We're not talking about just the custom, etc., right? We're talking about the operation. Who was the one that is being asked for that marriage? It is the father that is very protective of the daughter, right? That should be the fundamental number one. Before saying about age, etc., is the father supportive of this marriage? If the father that is very protective of the daughter, know the condition of the daughter, and know who is asking for the marriage, the soon to be husband, the proposed to be husband, would that be a good fit and take care of that, right? So that's the first fundamental before we go to the age, right? That is what happened in that marriage. So I hope that is understood, because when we discuss as if it's purely just age and then you can go however you want because that age is justified, that is grossly misunderstanding what happened in that marriage. And when we say what Allah says is okay back then, we're not talking about one item and take it totally in isolation, in silo. That is not how Sharia in Islam works. It is a package. This is a package, right? So now, that's number one. Does the father actually act as a wali, which is very protective of the daughter? Hence, it is only allowed or accepted if this is the best possible options or way forward, etc., right? So that's number one. Number two, what is harmful? So if we want to say, because from the marriage of Aisha, right, that's the period where it is the marriage but not consummated, and then there's the phase after the consummation of marriage, right? So okay, normally people say about the physical maturity, and before that it becomes harmful. It becomes harmful where the children is not ready for such relationship, right? So that is understood, but that is taken care of in that marriage, right? Because that's why there's this waiting period, and then only then, right? So if we understand the principle, if even a Muslim want to apply it today, you cannot just without looking at this aspect simply say that I want to do exactly at that number. Then you really don't understand. You don't really understand. Your brain is not functioning. You cannot do that way, right? So we understand. Oh, okay. The wait is until when it is really actually maturity reach the point where, so that issue of harmful is no longer there, right? So I hope this has better on this one. What about before that? Because she is already a wife. Even though that physical harm is not there, what kind of harm are you talking about? Is it psychologically? Is it emotionally? Is it what? And if you look at this, look at the marriage of the Prophet. Is there any issue there, or is it taken care of? The father and mother know the condition of the daughter, know this man or this character, etc., etc., etc. So inshallah, there's no issue, there's no concern with regard to how the wife, even though she's young, emotionally, psychologically, etc., no concern, right? So if you apply the same principles now, right, even if you want to say that in principle the age allowed is still the same number. Let's say now you use the same number, right? But it comes with the package. If the parents say, no, I know my daughter, she's not emotionally ready for this, etc., etc., right? Because of the condition, because of all her friends in school, and suddenly what, etc. So emotionally, psychologically, no, it will affect her long term. So based on the same marriage that we are talking about, it applies as the parent would say that no, she have to wait until an age where psychologically, etc., right? So That's where I come from, because I'm not sure how because when people talk about this, they are talking without understanding what Sharia is and how it functions. So they say that, oh, that number, so you say this number, right? No, it's a package, right? All of those package comes, and if all of this, hypothetically, right? If all of this is taken care of, meaning that how harmful it is for children is no longer an issue. Just hypothetically, yeah, hypothetically. I'm not saying, because now we can argue, right? At this age, if a girl, because it's not a norm, etc., etc., suddenly she face something that is because of the need of this work now, and mostly husband and wife to work, whatever you want to argue, that this is harmful long term. Hence, based on that principle, no, she shouldn't get married, right? But hypothetically, let's say, right? If there's a condition, there's a situation where there's no harm whatsoever, emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever, there's no harm whatever to the children, to the girl, what else is the issue with such marriage? So I hope you understand my question, right? Because I do agree now, in this day and age, with how the society works, etc., etc., I'm not sure what else is it. Is it food that we eat? Is it the environment, which means that the maturity, be it physically or emotionally, mentally, etc., means if I apply the same standard now, it will be much later. I'm not shifting the number, I'm sticking to the principles. Using the same principle, now it will come much later, number wise. So I'm not shifting anything. I'm applying the maqasid of what we understand from their marriage, right? But hypothetically, if there's no issue whatsoever, it's not even harmful, it is the best possible future for her, for example, right? Like for the case of Aisha. If we know for a fact this is what is best for her, mentally, physically, psychologically, everything, holistically, this is the best. What else would be the reason for you to say, no, it's still wrong, because we have to stick the number like this? Meaning, can you, because I'm really trying to understand what else, because I understand this point. When it is harmful, no, it shouldn't be. Straightforward. So, yep. So that is my response to this question. And I do anticipate that, we will have further more interesting about this based on your response, because I would like to know, other than issue of harmful, because if you want to say no, so the society needs them to have higher education because we need a workforce, that might not be the best for her, right? Although it might be the best for the industry revolution or whatever, right? So if that is the case, would you still think that it is morally wrong for her to pursue what is best for her factually, and sacrifice the best for industrial revolution benefit, right? So what do you think about that? Anyway, so that's the end of this part. Thank you for watching. See you next time.